Crazy thing happened. A convicted felon went to a UFC match over the weekend, and he found a lot of love. That's right. Donald Trump in his element, and you're going to see every bit of it. Plus, Megyn Kelly smacks down Dan Abrams with the truth about the Trump trial. Maxine Waters goes absolutely bonkers, thinking that you're planning a civil war against her. Oh, and Chris Cuomo absolutely smacked down with truth bombs over what he did during COVID-19. And as we speak, Republicans are trying to do the same thing to Anthony Fauci. And we've got you the latest videos of that testimony. It's a busy morning. We better get right to it. We're brought to you by the Electronic Payments Coalition. I'm Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. We are live streaming on Rumble right now, as we do every day. Come on board and join the party. Plus, if you're watching these videos after the fact, whether it's the Full Show podcast, which, by the way, really big numbers on the Full Show podcast recently. We love all of the new subscribers and all the people who are watching our full show. Thank you for that. Please like and subscribe. And by the way, leave comments. And if you're listening to our audio-only podcast on Apple or Spotify or wherever the heck you get your audio-only, leave some reviews. That makes a big difference for us. All of that engagement, as you know, really increases our visibility and gets the word out. Because, guys, it's June now, and we've got a sprint to the finish line in November. We're going to act like we're 10 points behind no matter what the polls show. We got to win this thing. We got to win this big, and it can't be close, so they can't cheat. So stick with us. We're in this together. Let's go. Over the weekend, Donald Trump, fresh off of that unbelievable and despicable, unconstitutional, un-American conviction in New York, took his show to the UFC fights in New Jersey, and he saw nothing but love. Take a look at the opening.
Former teammate Mercedes Lewis, also in the building, former President Donald Trump.
Listen to that reaction. Honestly, I mean, I know it's said all the time, but can you imagine Joe Biden even trying to walk into that room without falling on his face, let alone getting that kind of reception anywhere? Would Joe Biden get that kind of cheer at a WNBA match? I don't think so, honestly. What sport could Joe Biden go visit and get any kind of fun reaction, unless there's some sort of, girl hair sniffing sport that I don't know about. Although I'm sure we should check his browser settings actually on that. But that's not where it ended with Donald Trump. Everybody say, oh, this is going to put a chill across the entire MAGA world. Everyone's going to be so ashamed of the fact that Donald Trump is a convicted felon. He's going to lose all of his support. And everyone's going to be so ashamed that they're out there supporting a convicted felon. Yeah, not so much. This is a beautiful moment. Who captured this? I'm not sure who posted this. It's fantastic. This is when the crowd starts shouting, let's go Brandon, shall we say? And when Trump figures out what they're chanting, take a look at his reaction. You can see him there leaning forward in the red tie. Keep Let's loop this real fast because you got to see. So the chant is going, let's go Brandon, let's go Brandon. And then you can see somebody whispers in his ear. I think it's the guy in charge of UFC. He says, can you understand what they're chanting? He gets it. He looks up at the crowd, gives a fist. They start to cheer. And then there we go, baby. Come on. Yeah, the convictions are really affecting his support. What did he raise? $54 million in a 24-hour period. 30% of those donations are all new donors. That means if you're one of them, I hate to break it to you, but you're going to be getting text messages and emails asking for another $10, another $20. But building that kind of base of support between now and Election Day, that's critical. That's how it's done. And I'm pretty sure the folks that go to UFC, they're in Trump's corner, and not just the crowd. Take a look at this brilliant moment after one of the matches.
President Trump, you're the man, bro. It is a damn travesty what they're doing to you. I'll be donating to you, my man. Let's get it done.
Let's get it done. Congratulations, sir.
Sean Strickland, ladies and gentlemen.
Sean Strickland. He's endlessly entertaining. We were going to show you a clip of him in the post-match press conference, but I don't know, Kevin, what would it would pretty much sound like Trump beep and Trump beep and Justin Trudeau beep. I mean, that's pretty much what the clip would be, right? We don't want to break our censor button, right? It would be rough. But Sean Strickland kicked butt. He wasn't the only fighter, by the way, who wanted to show some love to Donald Trump. Check out this amazing moment.
He's like taking the arm out.
You don't think this is a movement here? You don't think? Do you feel? I mean, it's even more different than 2016, isn't it? Because there's such a defiance now. If you support Donald Trump after everything the establishment has thrown at him and the unfair treatment that he's had, you are the definition of badass. And badasses in this country, like UFC fighters, are boldly stepping up and saying, oh, yeah, I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to hide in the shadows. F all y'all. I win my match and I'm going right to the man at courtside. Dan White, the UFC Grand Poobah there, right next to him. Trump's defiance continued, by the way, over the weekend. He sat with the Fox and Friends crew.
Or even jail.
It
How do
could.
you face what that could?
I'm okay with it. I saw one of my lawyers the other day on television saying, "Oh no, you don't want to do that to the president." I said, "You don't beg for anything. You just the way it is."
That's huge in terms of the messaging that he's trying to put out there. In terms of Trump is not the victim. And that is actually a grave concern here, that Republicans and Trump and supportive of his sound like we're whining, sound like we're victims, sound like, oh, woe is me. Look at what they're doing to us. It's not fair. How many of you as a conservative, how many of you hate hearing people say, that's not fair. It's not fair. Of course it's not fair. But leaders don't hide in the shadows and bundle up into the embryonic state and start crying in their beers and say it's not fair what they're doing to me. He says, hey, you want to put me in jail? Bring it on. I'll take it all. If I have to run this campaign from jail, I mean, Trump is daring the judge to put him in jail. Trump seems to know that he will actually gain in support and popularity if they put him in jail. You got to think that Team Biden, who's behind all of this, of course, is absolutely dumbfounded that nothing that they expected is happening. Oh, they're going to call him a convicted felon now. You know what? Trump should come out with his own ads or his own merch that says vote for the convicted felon, because it's such a freaking joke and everybody knows it. Own it. Absolutely own it. They're going to call me this? Fine. I'll take it from you. I will take the power from you. It's like when Hillary called us all deplorables. And now we proudly stand up and say, by the way, I'm a deplorable. I am so freaking deplorable. You don't want to be in my company. Get out of my face. That's how deplorable I am. Whatever label they give us, we'll own it proudly and we'll turn it back on them. Everything is going to boomerang. So I love the fact that Trump is like, I have one of my lawyers on TV saying, oh, you don't want to put the Trump in jail. Trump told his lawyers to stop that. We are not going to beg for anything. We're going to win despite all of this. More from, this is Trump's lawyer, another lawyer, Alina Habba. I don't think she's the one who was complaining about Trump going to jail. Here, take a look.
We have seen some corruption that this country has frankly never seen before in our judicial system. It is very real. It is not posturing by any means. It is 100% a problem that this country is going to have to handle and get a grapple on in November. Donald Trump is the victim of political selective prosecution.
And if he fails in his appeal that you say that you would win, and he does end up in jail, would he run for president from a jail cell?
He is running for president. Nothing will change there.
Even if he ends up being locked up?
Again, I recommend you find the latest polls in this country from the people that live in this country, the people that need him in this country, because frankly, it's more important than anything anybody else thinks. Our people are speaking loudly. They're donating. They're small donors. And they're standing up because they're afraid, because we cannot have this happen to us.
I love a Brit going up there and saying, but there's no possible way he can run or win. And Alina Habba's just, very calmly, very clearly saying, yeah, I suspect you take a look at the polls. If anything, this is going to help. Also, during that Fox and Friends interview this weekend, Donald Trump was asked about some certain burning issues that a lot of people care about should he win the presidency again. He's feeling so emboldened now. You know how in the first term, he was sort of cautious with some things. Remember how, they said, oh, he had got crowds chanting, lock her up against Hillary Clinton. That's why this is happening to him. Yeah. And yet when he won the presidency and he was asked, are you going to investigate Hillary Clinton? What did Trump say? A week after the election in November of 2016, before he was even sworn in, he said, listen, the election's over. I won. If I investigate and prosecute Hillary Clinton, it would be too divisive and destructive to our country. He was more circumspect, more respectful of our judicial process, more respectful of the traditions of our nation and the ties that bond us together. The ability to get past an election and say, yeah, we all hated each other, but we've got to move forward together somehow. He was more respectful of that than Mr. Unity in the White House ever would be. But here's the thing. He's learned that lesson. He's not going to make that mistake again. This term, should he win in November, if we stick together and focus, he is going to pull out all the stops. And the left knows it, and that's why they're getting even more hysterical. They're going to stop with this conviction in New York. It's going to be very ugly. And now watch this response to questions about what he might do should he become president again.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah. I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah. And that's why they're terrified. That's why they're terrified. Why isn't the JFK files already declassified, like from top to bottom? Well, seriously, what the hell is there to hide? If no one in the government and no one... the Soviet Union is gone. Fidel Castro is dead. It's been since 1963. So it's 61 years. Why in the hell is the Kennedy assassination investigation still classified? Who exactly is being protected? So, yeah, he said point blank. You just saw it. Yep. All right. Former Speaker Kevin McCarthy on CNN. This is going to be the regular questioning. God, the Republicans, how can you possibly go forward with a convicted felon as your nominee? Well, answer number one, because everybody knows that the conviction is bull. But number two, Kevin McCarthy actually honed in on the most important part of this question.
But politics. Is it a good idea, separating out your view of the verdict, is it a good idea for...
Hold on. I got to jump in here for a second. Separating out your view of the verdict. He's about to ask, is it a good idea for Republicans to nominate a convicted felon? I'll start it over again. But this whole separating out your view of the verdict. In other words, forgetting about how corrupt the process was to lead to the conviction. Set aside the fact that this entire thing was unprecedented. They invented a crime. They put him on trial. He wasn't allowed to defend himself in the public square. The jury was from a jury pool where Trump lost by 88% of the vote. Forget about the fact that they convicted him without having to reach unanimity on the underlying crime that was, by the way, never named until closing arguments. So Donald Trump's lawyers could never actually defend themselves against the underlying crime. And set aside the fact that the number one star witness is a convicted perjurer who lied on the stand and was caught in those lies. Set aside all of that for a moment. Wait, why exactly are we setting that aside? Why are we setting aside the basis of the entire scam that we saw unfold in Manhattan? Yeah, we need to set that aside. No, pal, we're not going to set that aside. That's the whole problem with this thing. Set it aside for a second. Is it wise to nominate a convicted felon? Well, not if you don't set all of that aside. All right. I won't interrupt this time.
But politics. Is it a good idea, separating out your view of the verdict, is it a good idea for the Republican Party to nominate a convicted felon?
Listen, is it a good idea that Donald Trump is the nominee? The answer is 100% yes.
That's right. And that really is the most important answer to all of it. Instead of getting lost in the weeds you know, oh, convicted felon and the jury pool and all the stuff that I just laid out there, which, by the way, is pretty relevant, and you shouldn't set it aside, Manu. The bottom line is we didn't nominate a convicted felon. We nominated Donald Trump. We nominated Donald Trump, who every American voter with a clear mind recognizes was 10 times the president Joe Biden is. The economy was 10 times better. Unemployment was 10 times better. Our border was 10 times more secure. The crime in the streets was handled. National security was finally reined in. Our country was protected. Our men and women overseas were not put in harm's way. There wasn't a firestorm and a dumpster fire in the Middle East. In fact, there was a road to peace in the Middle East. And Vladimir Putin was kept in check because we drained his country of resources by becoming energy independent and not driving up the price of oil worldwide, which funds the Ukraine war and also funds Iran's terrorism in the Middle East. Yes, this isn't about a convicted felon. It's about the man, and the man is obviously the superior candidate in this election. That's why Democrats, like our friends at CNN, don't want to talk about Biden versus Trump. They want to talk about convicted felon versus decency. Yeah, we know what decency looks like. Let's let Bill Maher have the final word here on his podcast. He was talking to a liberal left-wing journalist, and they had a little bit of a disagreement about Joe Biden's prospects this November.
I can't say it enough. I said it many times. I would vote for his head in a jar of blue liquid over Donald Trump. But that doesn't mean that I'm not. First of all, I think it's a moot point at this point.
Okay.
He's gonna lose.
Who, Biden?
Yes.
No, you're wrong.
No.
You're wrong. You're wrong. He's not. They really think that Biden's going to win. They really do. Which, by the way, given how confident they are, makes me very suspicious about what else they have up their sleeves. But they truly do that. And by the way, this is one thing that should make you feel a little bit emboldened. And again, no one's getting complacent. No one. This is going to be the uphill fight of a lifetime. Ignore the polls. Don't pay attention to them. Right? We fell into that trap in 2022. Things are looking very good right now. There's a lot of game to be played, and we have got to fight like we're 10 points down, 20 points down. Because this has to be a rout. If it's not close, they can't cheat. They can only cheat if it's close. All right? But one thing that should make you feel a little bit better when you go to bed tonight is that their public face, everything they're saying in public, like you just saw, they are as confident right now as they were on election night 2016. Trump doesn't have a chance. There's no way. There's no way. There's no chance. Hillary's a shoo-in. Glass ceiling shattered. It's not even close. You remember how confident they were. That's how they are right now. But we're going to keep our eye on the prize. Don't you worry. We're keeping our eye on the prize. Millions of Americans earn and use credit card rewards. Corporate megastores want to take those rewards away, and that's bad. These are rewards that we use on groceries and school supplies. It's the cash back to save on gas and grow our small businesses. Travel miles that we use to make memories. The Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would eliminate credit card rewards. It's awful. No more travel miles, no more cash back. When lawmakers help corporate megastores line their pockets, American families pay for it. So I want you to tell your senator to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. I want you to go to handsoffmyrewards.com and take action today. That's handsoffmyrewards.com. All right. Moving on. Chris Cuomo is really doing his best to mix it up and get out there. Here's the thing with Chris Cuomo. He's not on a big network anymore in prime time on CNN, which was a multi-million-dollar contract. He was probably making, what do you think, 8 figures? I'm thinking he was probably making $10 million a year. Let's lowball it. Let's say he was making $5 million a year. I assure you, over on News Nation, which actually shows some promise, this News Nation cable station, he's not making nearly that much. So he's got to work overtime to get out there. And they're trying to build this brand over at News Nation that we're not right, we're not left, we're right down the middle. Okay, guys, who's your conservative primetime host? Because I see this guy, I see Chris Cuomo, and I see who else is over on News Nation? I can't remember now. I see a lot of people who used to be on CNN and MSNBC. I'm not seeing a whole lot of former conservative hosts finding their way to News Nation. So, I mean, you really want to prove to us that you've got both sides represented? How about hire some conservative hosts in prime time, right? Anyway, he goes on the PBD podcast, and this is a debate with a stand-up comedian, by the way, which I think is hilarious. And watch what happens when he is exposed on his denials about ivermectin. You remember we pointed out to you a couple of weeks ago that Chris Cuomo is now acknowledging that he is COVID vaccine injured. His doctor has told him that the vaccine has harmed him, and he's now taking ivermectin. And well, watch how the conversation goes with regard to how he treated people who took ivermectin back in his CNN days.
There was so much talk that they don't want you to take ivermectin. Ivermectin is the way to go. Take it. Joe Rogan got better from ivermectin. And by the way, I don't like what people did to Joe Rogan about ivermectin. I don't like
You did it.
No. Okay,
Yes,
good.
you did.
Find the clips.
But, dude, find the clips. You shamed Joe Rogan.
Find the
You
clips.
said he's taking horse dewormer. You and Don Lemon were chuckling at each other about it.
No.
I'll go find
First
the
of all,
clip.
you just saw the clips.
I watched
I'm
it.
not chuckling. I'm listening to Don. But
No. The
here's
clip
point.
I'm talking about wasn't on there, and
Here-
it's absolutely
look, we
there.
were
Here, do we have it? Hold on. Let's play the clip.
Go ahead.
Injecting drugs for animals and horse.
And people telling them to. Oh my God. What person? You know, you talk about cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer, really?
They are shaming themselves.
That's
No
what
one
it
has
is.
to shame them. They're shaming themselves.
No, they need to
So
be
you're
shamed.
taking a
They need to be
dewormer right
called
now.
out.
This
Shamed.
is
It's a
you can't
dewormer.
apologize for that. You weren't being clear that it was
All
this,
right.
and you know that, dude. You're being so dishonest right now.
I'm not
You
being
were talking
dishonest.
about ivermectin, the drug. You were not talking about
I
this
was-
version of ivermectin. Come on.
I
man.
was.
What a beautiful moment. What I wouldn't give to be in a position like that, where the person that you're debating is lying to you before your eyes, and you immediately say, "Get the clip. Let's get the clip." And then you play the clip right in front of him, and he still won't even acknowledge it. He's claiming, "Oh, I was talking about the horse dewormer version of ivermectin, not the one that's prescribed." They never made that distinction. These lying sacks, you know that. We all know it. And he's trying to weasel his way out of it. But it was a beautiful thing to see him exposed right there in front of that audience. I mean, listen, keep coming. Yeah, this is the thing about Cuomo. I mean, you can't take away the fact that his last name is Cuomo. He's a Democrat operative. He's the son of the former governor of New York. He's the brother of the former governor of New York. They are a political family. He just happened to take his politics into the realm of broadcasting, not journalism, mind you. Broadcasting. He's still a tool of the Democrat Party and the left in this country. He just uses his platform in front of a camera to do that, which I'm fine with, by the way. Hey, guess what? That's what I do. I'm not the family of a political family or anything like that. I'm not related to people who have run for office, but I have my opinions. I wear them on my sleeve. I let you know what my opinions are, and I trust and respect your intelligence to shoot everything that I tell you through the view of my politics. You're like, okay, Larry said this. He's also conservative. Maybe there's another opinion on these facts that we put out there, but not this guy. This guy lies to you. This guy pretends that he doesn't have a dog in the fight, that he's not an activist, that his last name isn't Cuomo. He's not going to do whatever it takes to advance the party that he was born into from his father and with his brother as the governor. He pretends that he's above the fray and he's just there for the truth of the facts. But when he's exposed as the liar that he is, he still won't even acknowledge it. Which brings us to Anthony Fauci. Because Chris Cuomo's lies on CNN, they're dangerous, absolutely. But what Anthony Fauci did during the pandemic, well, let's hope he finally gets called out in the same way that Chris Cuomo was in that clip. Let's hope Anthony Fauci gets called out on Capitol Hill right now as we speak. 2 hours ago, the Oversight Committee, the Special Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic began, and Anthony Fauci is the star witness. And there's going to be a lot of lines of questions. We have a couple of clips to show you here, but I want to start with this. As a Republican, if you're like me, you're probably a little frustrated that we have such a small majority in the House and they just don't seem to get stuff done, right? I know that. I hear it all the time. Listen, I'm a little bit more tolerant because I know, number one, it's hard to get anything done when you've got that small of a majority in the House and you've got a Democrat Senate and a Democrat in the White House, right? Now, listen, I'm not making apologies for them. They can do more and they should do more. But number one, it's hard to get it done with that small of a majority. Number two, unlike Democrats, Republicans have independent minds. They don't march in lockstep. They don't, salute smartly and charge up the hill together, okay? To paraphrase Will Rogers, I'm not a member of an organized political party. I'm a Republican. But I like that about us, by the way. The fact that we don't act like, you know, the freaking stormtroopers all goose stepping down the street. When you know that AOC and Nancy Pelosi, they hate each other, right? You know, these people on the left, these Democrats, they can't stand each other. They're incredibly different. But when push comes to shove, boy, do they bond together. Well, we're not like that. We're independent. We have freedom. We have different mindsets. And if we don't like you, we're going to tell you we don't like you. And it's very rare that we're going to put that aside and vote together. Now, if we could have a larger majority, that would make us a lot more effective. But let me get back to my original point. Even with this small of a majority in the House, the fact that we have that majority means that we get the committees, we get the gavels, we set the agendas. All right. And the fact that there is a subcommittee happening today grilling Anthony Fauci on his lies of the pandemic is monumental, because under Nancy Pelosi for 2 years, it never happened. And it never would have happened if they were still in charge. Democrats seem to not care about what happened during the pandemic. The single most destructive government-made event of our lifetimes. People's lives were ruined because of government decisions. And whenever they were challenged, why are you doing this? Why are you shutting that down? Why are you shutting that down? Why are you forcing this to happen? They all said the same thing. Well, we're following the science. We're listening to Anthony Fauci. And a lot has been learned about that science, including, well, the release of the depositions that happened behind closed doors about a month and a half ago. I've mentioned this to you before, but now we got the written transcripts, and I want to show you one very important page of those transcripts here. This is Anthony Fauci under oath. Again, this is the written transcript. Today in the hearing, he will expand on it. We'll show you a clip. Question: do you recall when discussions regarding a 6-foot threshold began? This is 6-foot social distancing. His answer: you know, I don't recall. It just sort of appeared. I don't recall like a discussion of whether it would be 5 or 6 or whatever. It was just 6 foot is. And then the question: did you see any studies that supported 6 feet? Answer: I was not aware of studies. So in other words, there were no studies supporting a 6-foot social distancing rules. He doesn't know exactly where it happened. It just sort of appeared. The 6-foot social distancing rule. I know people hated the masks. I know that people hated the antibacterial wipes. I know that people hated the vaccines and the mandates. I did too. But my friends, the 6-foot social distancing rule was the single most destructive thing to our economy, to our children's lives and their development, and to our election. That 6-foot social distancing rule is what kept our schools closed. That 6-foot social distancing rule is what kept businesses closed. And that 6-foot social distancing rule is what kept the polling places closed and forever changed. That was the rationale for all the mail-in ballots, for all of the drop boxes, for all of the relinquishing of basic, just basic election fraud mechanisms that we had in place up until that point to ensure that we had as sound and secure an election as you're ever going to find, at least in America. I mean, we're not doing the purple finger dips here. I wish we would. I wish we did. But every single thing to bastardize our voting process that Democrats were fighting for decades, they crammed through in 2020 because of social distancing. And look what happened. And look what happened. And Anthony Fauci, under oath, says, yeah, I don't know. It just sort of happened. It just sort of happened. I don't know where it came from. So here's a little bit of the hearing today. This is Congressman Wenstrup from Ohio. He is a doctor. He's chairing this subcommittee.
The chosen scientific position was immediately labeled as anti-science. Anything less than complete submission to the mandates could cost you your livelihood, your ability to go into public, your child's ability to attend school. Families were thrown off planes and shamed when their 2-year-olds struggled to wear a mask. Children with disabilities lost access to therapy that they and their families depended on. Students were out of the classroom and told to attend school remotely, even when the science clearly demonstrated it was safe for them to go back in the classroom. This harmed low-income students the most. And how were single-parent households supposed to teach their own children and work at the same time? Dr. Fauci, you oversaw one of the most invasive regimes of domestic policy the U.S. has ever seen, including mask mandates, school closures, coerced vaccination, social distancing of 6 feet, and more.
And as Chairman Wenstra pointed out at the very beginning there, anyone who challenged it, anyone who was defiant, anyone who stood up or even questioned, like, where is this coming from? Doesn't make any sense to us. How do you know this? Show us the science to back this up. You would get lambasted. You'd be shut down. You'd be silenced. You'd be marginalized. And who started all of that? Who's responsible for all of that? Let's not forget who.
I mean, anybody who's looking at this carefully realizes that there's a distinct anti-science flavor to this. So if they get up and criticize science, nobody's going to know what they're talking about. But if they get up and really aim their bullets at Tony Fauci, well, people could recognize there's a person there. So it's easy to criticize, but they're really criticizing science because I represent science.
Dr. Anthony.
Yeah, because he represents science. He was the guy who spearheaded all of that. He loved being put up there as the guy who represents science. He took it very personally. He was the one who promoted the idea that if you question any of the things that the public health officials through the CDC and the NIH was telling you, then you are anti-science. You're a numbskull. You're a Neanderthal. You don't believe in science. You think that and welcome to Jesus into Jerusalem, whatever, right? This is what they painted you as. Well, today he was asked about, well, at the very least, let's start with social distancing. You said under oath you didn't know where this came from. You admitted that there was no science to back it up. So why in the hell did we do this? And why didn't you step up and say something when you saw lives ruined because of it? Here's his answer. You tell me if you're satisfied.
Issue of the 6 foot distance. And I made the statement that it just appeared and that got taken at like, I don't know what's going on. It just appeared. It actually came from the CDC. The CDC was responsible for those kinds of guidelines for schools, not me. So when I said that it just appeared, it appeared. Was there any science behind it? What I meant by no science behind it is that there wasn't a controlled trial that said compare 6 foot with 3 feet with 10 feet. So there wasn't that scientific evaluation of it. What I believe the CDC used for their reason to say 6 feet is that studies years ago showed that when you're dealing with droplets, which at the time that the CDC made that recommendation, it was felt that the transmission was primarily through droplet, not aerosol, which is incorrect because we know now aerosol does play a role. That's the reason why they did it. It had little to do with me since I didn't make the recommendation, and my saying there was no science behind it means there was no clinical trial that proved that. That's just one of the things that got a little distorted in the response to that.
And I've learned and watched you over the years. I have to go back to.
Yeah. All right. So you buying that? Well, first of all, it was the CDC who did the 6 foot social distancing, not me. I had nothing to do. Do you remember this guy out there promoting this everywhere? Do you remember him distancing himself? No, I remember him throwing out the first pitch at a baseball game. I remember him receiving awards and getting laudatory parades with them putting him up on a float saying, thank God for our hailing hero, conquering hero, Anthony Fauci. I love that now it's like, well, you know, that whole social distancing, that wasn't me. That was the CDC. You should really talk to them about it. I think they may have come up with this because they didn't think it was aerosol, but now we realize it was aerosol, or maybe it was in droplets. Or that. Oh, so in other words, you made it up as you went along. That's not science, right? Wouldn't you have loved to have that answer? You know, why are we doing 6 foot social distancing instead of 3 foot social distancing or 8 foot social distancing? And the answer should have been, well, to tell you the truth, we're not sure. You know what? We haven't done any controlled studies. We're not even sure if this thing is passed through droplets or aerosol. We're trying to be safe. We could be wrong. We don't know. We honestly don't know. I can't show you any science to back this up. We're just taking our best guess, and we're going to do this thing that will ruin people's lives. How many people died in hospitals and you couldn't go and visit them? I know someone died in my life that I wasn't able to see before they died because of these rules. Couldn't even go to the funeral because of it. How many children's lives were ruined? How many special needs kids who will never get those years back again to help them in their development? And they were never honest with you. And they were straightforward. And it was this guy. This guy was the tip of the spear along the way. I'm sorry, dude. You don't get all of your accolades, your book sales, your puff pieces on cable news. You don't get your cushy job over at Georgetown University School of Medicine. And at the same time, when you're actually called into question on this crap, then you point the finger, well, that wasn't really me. We didn't know. We didn't know. No. You want to be the science? Oh, when they criticize they're really criticizing the science. Okay, you want to be Mr. Science? Then you take the hits, dude. They didn't know. They still don't know. Watch a little bit more.
Of reality, unquote. You've said, quote, I've heard these conspiracy theories, and like all conspiracy theories, they're just conspiracy theories. That's what you told the American people. And so would you like to clarify what science were you following then versus now?
No, I've also been very, very clear and said multiple times that I don't think the concept of there being a lab leak is inherently a conspiracy theory. What is conspiracy is the kind of distortions of that particular subject, like it was a lab leak and I was parachuted into the CIA like Jason Bourne and told the CIA that they should really not be talking about a lab leak.
Thank you.
That's the
you. Can I say it again? You. That is classic, despicable, disgusting, insulting, condescending, patronizing, straw man. That's what that is. Oh, no. The whole idea of a Wuhan lab link, that's not what I meant by a conspiracy theory. I meant me parachuting into the CIA like Jason Bourne and telling them not to investigate. That's the guy. No one said that. Who said that he parachuted into Langley? Like Jason Bourne. The only thing he's got in common with Matt Damon is that they're both 5'6". What a jerk. What a complete and total a-hole. Debbie Lesko of Arizona also jumped in on some of the questioning. Take a look.
3 days later, on February 4th, 2020, 4 participants on the conference call authored a paper, Proximal Origin, which was sent to you for editing. Proximal origin pushed the natural origin theory. On April 16, 2020, the NIH director, Dr. Collins, emailed you expressing dismay that the Nature Medicine article, which was based on proximal origin, didn't suppress the lab leak theory and asked you for more public pressure to suppress the lab leak theory. The very next day, in response to Dr. Collins' request to suppress the lab leak theory, you cited the Nature Medicine article, which discounted the lab leak theory from the White House podium. My question to you, sir, did you cite this article at the White House because the NIH director asked you to suppress the lab leak theory?
I did not do that in response to anybody's suggestion to suppress anything. It was in response to a question that someone asked at the podium. And I did not edit any paper as shown in my official testimony. So you said about 4 or 5 things, Congressman, that were just not true.
Well, we have emails to prove it.
Well, you don't.
Thank you. And I yield back.
I now recognize Mr. Mfume from Maryland for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And by the way, no, we don't have it. So I get tired of hearing we've got it, and then when we ask for it, it's not there. We do not have it, Dr. Fauci, and for everyone watching this. That's just incorrect.
Kwesi Mfume of Maryland representing how the Democrats are conducting these hearings. They're not trying to get facts. They're trying to run interference. They're trying to defend Anthony Fauci. They're not trying to, sorry, maybe I'm naive, but if there really is a public health emergency in this country, if there's a pandemic, if we need to look to government health officials to give us guidance to help protect our children's lives, I want us to be able to trust and believe the guidance they're giving us. And Fauci and the entire apparatus at the NIH and the CDC they look like fools right now. People don't trust them. And Democrats, I would think, would also have some concern over that. But as you just saw from Mfume and from the aptly named Debbie Dingbat out of Michigan. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it Dingle? I'm sorry. I always thought it was Dingbat. It seems okay. I stand corrected. It's Debbie Dingle. I'm so sorry, Congresswoman. She gives you a little bit of an example of exactly how Democrats are treating Anthony Fauci today.
Evidence of this. However, allegations by my Republican colleagues, amplified in the media, have led to real, tangible consequences for Dr. Fauci in his personal life in a way that should be unacceptable to all Americans. Dr. Fauci, you and I have known each other for a long time, and I'm not even going to admit how long. But during that time, I've seen your commitment not just to science, but to advancing the greater good. And I know that this isn't a topic you enjoy discussing, and I'm sorry I'm going to have to ask you about it. But I think the American people need to know what we are doing to those who are serving the common good and public health. I think it's important to make clear the harms that you and your loved ones have suffered because of these deeply irresponsible accusations. Because you know what? You're human, just like the rest of us. So, Dr. Fauci, can you please share with us the nature of the threats you have received since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, there have been everything from harassments by emails, texts, letters of myself, my wife, my three.
Look at this dude over his shoulder making the face. Look at these two dudes. How did these guys get these seats? I want to know who let these two in. Look at the face when he starts. Listen, I don't want anybody to get death threats either. Okay. But you know what? Guess what? I get death threats in emails. I get harassment. I'm not the highest paid federal government employee like Anthony Fauci is. I don't have residual payments from stock options and from patents on vaccines like Anthony Fauci was able to do in his capacity as a government employee. I don't have $1 million book deals like Anthony Fauci. You want to be out there. You want to be the tip of the spear. You want to make decisions that ruin people's lives. You're going to get some nasty emails. And Debbie Dingbat and her friends in the Democratic Party, what are they? All they're doing is running interference. And they're trying to make him into the victim. He's the victim. He's the victim. How many lives did this guy ruin with his decisions? And then if you dare to challenge him on it, you're a bully. You're harassing him. You're threatening him. You're putting his life in danger. And you're a numbskull who doesn't believe in science. Enough already. We're better than this. Can I just say, President Trump, you got to add this to your rallies. You got to add this to your position papers. You got to add this to what you promised to do on day one. There needs to be a full-blown, not just this little subcommittee, not a special select committee, a full-blown criminal investigation into what these people know, when they knew it, what they tried to cover up, and how the decision-making process was made to completely upend our country during an election year when everything was going great. Everything was growing. Donald Trump was marching to re-election. You think all of this is a mistake? You think all of this was just a happenstance? Oh, a coincidence. I don't know where the 6-foot distancing came from. Let's just start with that, Donald Trump. And you say you're going to get to the bottom of all of it. And you need to be have some humility about this. Donald Trump needs to go out there and say, listen, I trusted the wrong people. All right. I'd never had to deal with a public health pandemic. No president ever had to deal with something like this since World War I and Woodrow Wilson. All right. No modern president has had to deal with this kind of thing. I trusted these people, and God knows now they screwed all of us over. President Trump, you throw that humility into the equation as you're running for president, and you promise us that there will be complete and total transparency to figure out exactly what went into every major decision, you will win in a landslide. Let's get to it. Can your savings withstand an economic storm? Think about that question before you answer it. Think about what you put away for the future right now and what that savings looks like. Inflation, can render cash virtually worthless. Real estate can crash very easily. We just saw it in 2008. Economies built on a mountain of debt, like we're racking up right now in Washington, D.C., can fall like a house of cards. There are very few physical assets you can invest in that can withstand the test of time. Gold has withstood as a valued form of money for millennia. It's why people are flocking to it now and why Birch Gold is busier than ever. Through a little-known tax loophole, Birch Gold lets you convert a retirement account, a current account that you've got, into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. And the best part is it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. I want you to learn more about this. So please, will you take a moment and text my name, Larry, L-A-R-R-Y, to 989898, and you'll get a free info kit on gold. What's the harm in getting this information and educating yourself about this? Now's the time. Ask yourself again, can your IRA or 401k weather an economic storm? If not, or if you're not sure, call the people I trust. Birch Gold. Text my name, Larry, L-A-R-R-Y, to 989898. Secure your savings today. All right, we've got a lot more to get to. I spent some time on Fauci. I want to now pivot to reactions after the convictions of Donald Trump last week. A really important back and forth with Dan Abrams and Megyn Kelly. Boy, is Megyn Kelly based or what? Megyn Kelly was not having any of Dan Abrams' legal analysis. You know, he's a legal analyst on ABC News. He's also one of the founders of News Nation that we talked about earlier. Listen to this exchange here where Megyn Kelly calls Dan Abrams out on this sloppy, shorthanded kind of legal analysis we saw all over the cable news networks this weekend, where he says these bromides that are supposed to sound important and relevant, and Megyn Kelly, she's got the facts. Watch this.
There's wrongdoing here, right? There was definitely wrongdoing. Whether it should have been a crime is a separate. What's the wrongdoing? What's the wrongdoing? All right, number one, it's paying $130,000 to a porn star to keep her quiet. That's to try to protect your campaign. Can we at least agree that's wrong?
That's not illegal. It's not
I didn't say it was. No. I just said moral versus
How is it
legal.
Wrong. Are we talking moral?
I made it clear. I'm making it clear. For a minute, I'm talking about morality versus legality, right? There's no doubt that he engaged in.
All right, I'll tell. Here's my response to that.
Okay, before she does, I like to try to get personal with you sometimes, so you get to know me and learn about me, and I like to bring a little bit of my own experience. Can I just say something? I probably shouldn't. I used to work for Dan Abrams for about 6 months. For about 6 months, I was a columnist at Mediaite. I liked the guy. This was what was it, like 7 years ago? All right. I've worked for a lot of different websites. I've worked with Town Hall now for the better part of my the last 10 years. But for about 6 months or 9 months, I worked for Dan Abrams at Mediaite. I was a columnist for him, and I did some social media work for him. I controlled their videos on Facebook for a while there. In my contract with Mediaite, there is a paragraph that is a non-disclosure agreement. That's why all I'm telling you is that I used to work with Dan Abrams and that there was language in there that was non-disclosure. There were certain things that happened at the company that, they pay me a certain amount of money as part of my salary. Embedded in that is my agreement not to divulge stuff that happened at the company and company secrets, corporate secrets, things like that. That's hush money. Dan Abrams, the legal analyst and lawyer who owns Mediaite, the website that I used to write for, he's now saying that it's morally wrong to have a non-disclosure agreement with somebody. Now, listen, I'm not a porn star, although I'm open to offers, but I'm not a porn star. So is that the only thing that made it wrong, as he put it, morally wrong, to give a cash payment in exchange for a non-disclosure agreement to somebody who's a porn star? You realize how this whole porn star thing worked out, right? Stormy Daniels goes to Donald Trump and say, hey, I've got these pictures of you and I together. Remember that dinner we had? I'm going to tell the world that I had sex with you, and it's going to ruin your political career. And Trump's lawyers and stuff are like, don't do that. That's not true. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's not true. I'm going to put the story out there. I'm going to make millions of dollars, and it's going to ruin you. And so Trump's lawyers say, all right, listen, what's it going to take for you to not tell that? And she said, because listen, being honest in this case doesn't get you anything, okay? Because it doesn't have to be true. We've learned that already, haven't we? Look at the Russian collusion hoax. It doesn't matter if it's not true. It'll go everywhere. So they just said, all right, we'll pay you this much money if you just don't say a damn thing. And Stormy Daniels, who, by the way, has done worse things for money, says, okay, fine. So she gets the check. She signs. She promises not to say anything. Best part is then she does anyway. So that's theft, right? Trump has sued Stormy Daniels over this and said, you broke your NDA. Stormy Daniels currently owes Donald Trump hundreds of thousands of dollars because she stole from him by breaking the non-disclosure agreement. It's still a lie. It's not proven anywhere that they had a sexual relationship. But Dan Abrams looks at that entire scenario and says that the moral wrong was Donald Trump paying the NDA. He can't find any moral problems and ethical problems with Stormy Daniels' behavior. And may I repeat, this is a guy who had me sign a contract that had NDA language in it. Go figure. All right, back to Megyn.
I said this on my show the other day. I don't know what kind of weird marriage these two have. Same as I didn't know what kind of weird marriage Bill and Hillary Clinton had. So I don't know what their covenant is in terms of what he's allowed to do on the outside of his marriage.
But again, I don't mind the
For
sex.
me,
But
it
when
would be
you're
a serious
paying
problem.
But I'm not talking about the sex. I'm talking about the $130,000 to keep her quiet to protect his campaign.
Immoral. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing.
Really? Okay. Look, again,
if somebody runs for office, they just lose the right to have any privacy. They just have to let us see all of their dirty laundry from the moment they declare forward, or somehow they've done something morally wrong or legally wrong.
When you're doing it to protect the campaign and you are spending money on it, then now I'm going to switch back to the legal. You are now crossing the line into legal problems, right?
You aren't. That's absolutely not right. Incorrect at every level.
Again, the idea that let me back up. And you don't think he falsified business records either?
I don't know what he did. I don't think he wrote down.
What does that mean? We just had a whole trial. We heard every detail of this. How can you not know?
Let me answer.
Please.
Let me answer. I don't think he wrote down hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. Nobody who pays hush money would write down such a thing. I think he wrote down, or someone at the Trump organization wrote down, legal expenses from the drop-down Adobe menu. And that made as much sense as anything else because hush money wasn't an option. He was paying his lawyer who had made the payment to Stormy Daniels, and he was, I believe, reimbursing her, though he denied that, reimbursing him, though he denied that on the stand. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. I think you pay your lawyer money because he outlaid money for you. You could easily classify that as a legal expense.
No matter what it's for, right? Even if it's illegal conduct, you can just put it's a legal expense, right?
This wasn't.
Yeah, you see what he did there. Oh, well, even if it's illegal conduct. Wait, where's the illegal conduct? He paid a fee for a non-disclosure agreement. It was a contract, a mutually agreed upon contract that she ended up breaking. And I love that he never finds any fault there, right? But you've got Donald Trump and Stormy Daniels, and in Dan Abrams' world, the only one that's performed any questionable, unethical, immoral, or illegal behavior in this entire scenario is the guy who was president of the United States. But Megyn Kelly is giving a textbook example of how you push back on this because, guys, we've got the facts on our side. We shouldn't shy away from this story. The more the facts are revealed to people, they realize what complete and total bull is. And it is.
It wasn't illegal. There's nothing illegal about paying hush money for an NDA. It's done
There's not.
all the
time. But when you're doing it to protect your campaign, it is. That's the difference.
No. What law are you citing, Dan?
Campaign finance laws. You're not allowed to give the...
You don't know what you're talking
about.
What are you talking? You're wrong.
Explain to me.
Let me explain to you.
Tell me what I'm getting wrong. Tell me what I'm getting wrong. When you're spending $130,000...
I'll explain.
Go ahead.
I get it, because you're saying that there are limits to the campaign contributions somebody could make, and this has exceeded them, and then they hit it. I understand. That's his theory. However, this has been wrong from the start.
Yeah.
It does not amount to a campaign contribution if it is the kind of payment that could ever be made outside of the campaign context.
That's not the standard. The standard is substantiality. It's not. It's substantiality.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
You're wrong.
Okay.
No, it's not.
I guess we're going to have to agree.
There's been Supreme Court precedent on this. Talk to Brad Smith, who was the FEC commissioner.
Court that the standard is substantiality. All right.
That's correct. She is right. He is wrong. There is a standard on this, and this will get overturned at appeal. And but here's the beauty of it: Dan Abrams will not have to feel any, professional repercussions for this. They trot out all the legal analysts. Half of them have to be wrong, right? That's sort of the whole thing. They don't all agree. Half of these legal professionals get on television and they say, "Well, here's my opinion about it." And when they're wrong, nothing ever happens. I mean, look at Jeffrey Toobin, for God's sake. Actually, don't look at Jeffrey Toobin. Don't forget I said that. I apologize. Let's just forget. Back to Megyn Kelly, though. Earlier in the week, she was absolutely in fuego.
It's going to continue happening because now they've succeeded.
I agree, but you fight a lack of principle with a principle defense. You don't get down into the gutter with them and allow the pendulum.
You know who we need? No, I thought I'm going to utter words I never thought I would utter in my life. We need Steve Bannon. That's how I feel today. Bring it on. Get somebody who knows how to fight dirty, calling the shots. We're losing. They're taking out our people. This is about the presidency.
Yeah. All right. Listen, I love seeing her fire. And listen, this is the debate that's going on right now in this country, at least among conservatives. I don't know if I would put Alan Dershowitz in as the conservatives, but there's half of the people are like, oh, no, we're better than that. We can't get down in the dirt and the muck. We stand for principles. And as soon as we violate those principles that we stand for, then we're no better than them. Okay, that's great. Stand on your principles, but you're standing on the sideline while the game is being played. Okay. Now we don't need to burn it all down. Okay. We don't need to go that. Here's what we need. Let me give you an example. Maybe a good Republican district attorney in a good Republican state. I'm thinking one that went overwhelmingly for Trump, like West Virginia, maybe Alabama, maybe Mississippi, maybe Arkansas. A good county DA or maybe a good state attorney general. Take a look at Anthony Fauci. Take a look and maybe draw up a novel indictment here. Because guess what? There are people in those states, in those counties that I've just described who were negatively affected by Fauci. They were harmed because of the decisions that he made and what appears to be a cover-up. So how about some indictments? I mean, I'm sure Anthony Fauci is innocent. He can have his day in court. He can defend himself, but he should have to go through the process, right? Let's do that. Or how about Joe Biden and some of the decisions that he's made as president? Oh, you think he has immunity? Oh, no. Presidential immunity is up for question right now. But we don't need to do anything dirty. Okay, we do what they did. Oh, but what they did was dirty. Well, they got away with it. That's exactly what we need to do. And I love that Megyn Kelly, of all people, is now on board with this. By the way, Dan Abrams, remember him? Remember him who got schooled by Megyn Kelly? Well, it's funny. Just a couple of days after that exchange with Megyn Kelly on News Nation, he was on ABC News giving his legal analysis. Do you think this is the same guy?
But on the second question of the jury instructions, yeah, there's some real appellate issues here that are serious questions about why didn't the defense even know what the charge was that they were going to be applying, what law that was going to be applying.
Which of these three underlying laws?
Exactly. And so there were a lot of questions for the defense going into this, I think, as they were making their closing arguments, not even knowing sort of what the law that they were going to be battling over was. But
suddenly, Dan Abrams, after his exchange with Megyn Kelly, is a little more circumspect on ABC News when he's giving his legal notice, saying, yeah, there's a whole lot here that's going to get overturned on appeal. A whole lot that's going to be overturned on appeal. See, when you push back, when you fight back, when you make them confront and address the hypocrisy of their positions, suddenly some of them start to actually recognize that they're wrong. And suddenly they start to turn a corner. Just a slight one. Listen, you've got nutbags on your Facebook page who you're never going to convince, who were just there. They don't care. They just wanted to see Donald Trump convicted no matter what because they don't like him. You know what? They wanted him convicted for his single original sin, for the greatest crime Donald Trump ever committed in this entire escapade over the last 8 years. The crime he committed on November 2nd, 2016, the crime of defeating Hillary Clinton. They're still angry about that. They will never get over it. And that's why they wanted him convicted. You're never going to convince those people. You're never going to change their mind. But there are plenty of people, plenty, that deserve a conversation, that deserve the facts. And they might turn the corner just a little and suddenly start to see things a different way. That's what we're here for. That's what we're in this together for. Now, speaking of nutbags, Maxine Waters on MSNBC. I mean, I don't think I have to say anything more in setting this up. Maxine Waters, MSNBC, nutbags.
Well, let me just say, when I tweeted,
about Trump talking about the Constitution. I basically said in my tweet that he had disregarded the Constitution. He doesn't have any respect for the Constitution. I got over 1.3 million hits on that. And so I think in the final analysis, the American people see through him, and they're going to be guarded in how they deal with this election. Let me just say this. I'm worried that he's so divisive and that he's talking about retribution and they're talking about revenge. And I think that that's dangerous. He's even mentioned civil war at one point, talked about there would be bloodshed. I am going to spend some time with the criminal justice system, with the justice system, asking them, tell us what's going on with the domestic terrorists. Are they preparing a civil war against us? Should we be concerned about our safety? What is he doing with this divisive language? It is dangerous, and we're going to have to make sure that we understand that we're not at risk with this man talking in the way that he's doing. Mm-hmm. This is not good for this country, but he does not care about democracy. He does not care about the Constitution of the United States. He's in love with Putin and Russia and Kim Jong-un and North Korea and all of that. And so it's not just that he's a criminal. This is a man who disrespects the Constitution and democracy. And we have got to find out what they're doing as domestic terrorists tried to take over the government January 6th. How far is this going to go? Are they going to be attacking? Whom are they going to attack? What are we going to do? I've got to get on with trying to get an investigation going about that.
Boy, that is a whole big bag of nutso. Let's break it down little by little. I'm sorry to make you suffer through this, but she needs to be responded to. This is a very powerful woman, by the way. I mean, this is who the Democrats elevate as the shining lights of their party, the great intellects that run their majority or minority right now in the Congress.
Well, let me just say, when I tweeted about Trump talking about the Constitution, I basically said in my tweet that he had disregarded the Constitution. He doesn't have any respect for the Constitution. I got over 1.3 million hits on that.
So this is a sitting congresswoman who is making a point about Donald Trump and, I guess, not caring about the Constitution. She's determined that the people are on her side because when she tweeted that, she got 1.3 million hits. I don't think she knows what hits means. Is that impressions? Is that what she's meaning? Because what she needs to understand is she doesn't have any idea what a ratio is. Okay. So, honey, I hate to break it to you. With all due respect, Congresswoman, but I would say over half of those 1.3 million hits you got were people calling you the moron that you are. Okay. Just look at, I'm sorry I paused it right here. The good Lord. I think some kind of bug is going to fly into that pie hole there and cause the poor Congresswoman to gag. Just because you get 1.3 million hits on Twitter, ma'am, doesn't mean that people agree with you. I assure you. I love that this is the and Jonathan Capehart, the very serious journalist from the Washington Post and MSNBC, doesn't pause and say, "Excuse me, Congresswoman, what? I'm sorry. What does that have any relevance to? How is that relevant to anything?" I got 1.3 million hits when I challenged Donald Trump on the Constitution. Okay. Boy, wait, she's honestly, I do love that Reverend Al is on this panel because Reverend Al shows up and says, yeah, I don't really want to do the show today. Well, we've got Maxine Waters. And Al's like, oh, well, she'll make me look smart and normal. Okay, fine. I'll jump on board. You got me.
And so I think in the final analysis, the American people see through him and they're going to be guarded in how they deal with this election. Let me just say this. I'm worried that he's so divisive and that he's talking about retribution and they're talking about revenge.
So they have no self-awareness of the fact that they've just gone through this entire criminal justice process and they've sicked the Justice Department, they've sicked a special prosecutor, they've sicked DAs in Manhattan and Fulton County. The guy who was the number 3 at the Justice Department was the goon for Joe Biden, leaves the Justice Department, goes right to Manhattan and actually tries this case. It's got Biden and the Democratic Party's fingerprints all over it. They politicized it from day one. They even trotted out Robert De Niro out in front of the courthouse to do a victory lap on this thing, knowing that over 80 million people voted for Donald Trump in the last election, that the polls show that the majority of the people think that this is a political motivated criminal attack on him. And she thinks that he's being divisive. And she thinks there's something wrong with him suggesting that there should be retribution or revenge, where this entire thing is retribution and revenge. And she's either lying, ignorant, or completely lacking any self-awareness of what the Democrats have done themselves. Yeah, I do love all the stuff about Putin, by the way. You realize how much Vladimir Putin benefits from what the Democrats have done to Donald Trump this last week. All of the political persecutions that Vladimir Putin engineers in his country, we have now lost every moral standing to say anything to him about it. It's the Vladimir Putins of the world who have benefited from Maxine Waters and Joe Biden's political dementia and absorption with Donald Trump. From this point forward, no American president can lecture any country like Russia about their political persecution of their political opponents after what we just saw. She wasn't done, though. There's more from her.
Let me just say, it's a sad day for this country. I'm still shocked and amazed that his supporters would follow him with the lies and distortions that he continues to give to the American people. He says it's rigged. He says if they can do this to me, they can do it to you, bringing in others to cover the lies that he's telling. I'm amazed that those who claim to be so patriotic are so unpatriotic. I'm watching not only what happened in January 6th in Washington, D.C., but what is happening now. And men and women in the Republican Party don't have the courage nor the patriotism to stand up for democracy and what's good for America and understand and be able to honestly say to the American public that this used to be president. This former president is wrong. Whenever he loses, wherever he loses, he'll say it's rigged. He'll say that somehow he doesn't deserve to have to be lawful. Well, as the president said, no one is above the law. Those jurors on that jury are to be commended for what they have done. You had 7 men and 5 women who stepped up to the plate and did the hard work and rolled out to America and told America the truth. This man is guilty, not 1 time, 2 times, and 3 times, but on all 30 pounds. That's amazing.
Right. She's a clown and she hates you. She just said as much in that entire dissertation that you just heard. And by the way, again, God, I'd love for her to come on this show. I'd love to have a one-on-one. Maxine Waters, if you'd love to do a quick one-on-one interview, I'll give you 10 minutes. You can say whatever blithering idiocy that you want. I just have a couple of questions, and I'll even telegraph them for you. Here's one of them. When Donald Trump says if they can do this to me, they can do this to anybody, how is he wrong? I mean, really, if the law can be used in this way to go after a former president, in a way, and to prosecute him for something that the Justice Department and the Federal Elections Commission chose not to look at because they didn't think a crime was there. And then a DA who ran for office saying, I will find something to prosecute Donald Trump with. If they can do that to the former president of the United States and the current leading candidate for president right now in this country, how can they not do this to me or to any American citizen? Why shouldn't Americans be terrified of their own government when you see that if they put their mind to it, they will put you behind bars and they will ruin your life? How is he wrong? Please explain. I want to be wrong. Please tell me. But we move from the ridiculous to the offensive, despicable liar, Adam Schiff. Boy, there's something about California Democrats, isn't there? Especially Los Angeles Democrats. Let's move from Maxine Waters in South Central to Adam Schiff in Burbank and West Hollywood. He's running for Senate now in California, and he had plenty to say about Donald Trump and the sentencing that's pending.
No, I don't think it'll be dangerous for the country. And we have seen Trump urge mass protests outside the courthouse that never materialized. But nevertheless, this is, I think, what Donald Trump is aiming for. This is essentially his threat that if he gets jail time, that he's going to encourage his supporters to rise up. And we saw the very, deadly results of that on January 6th. So I don't think the public is going to respond to that call. I hope we learned something from the awful experience of January 6th. But it's very clear what Donald Trump is suggesting here. And this is something I think that the judge needs to take into consideration also, not to be intimidated by that threat, but as a further evidence, this defendant not only doesn't accept responsibility, but is willing to endanger people, just as Trump is willing to violate the gag order and potentially endanger witnesses or jurors or the judge himself or family members. That's something the judge ought to be considering.
So when Donald Trump says that it's damaging to the country and will harm the country if he is convicted and jailed, he's not asking for people to rise up and for there to be riots and civil war and civil disobedience. We're not Democrats, okay? We don't do that, okay? We remember the riots of Los Angeles after the Rodney King verdict. We remember just 4 years ago with George Floyd. We don't burn things down. We don't rise up. We don't. No, when he says it's bad for the country, he doesn't mean like that, you numbskull, hate-mongering liar. No, what he says is the God's honest truth, that the use of our judicial system and our court system and our law, our legal system as a political weapon to punish one's political opponents is destructive to the very fabric of our nation. And he knows that. He's just a liar. By the way, quick follow-up question for you, Adam Schiff. Are you going to show us all that evidence you said you had about Russian collusion? Because you used to come on CNN like almost daily, and you told us that you had all this evidence, but because you were on the House Intelligence Committee, you couldn't share it with us. Well, I'm sure things have been declassified now. Can you show it to us, please? No? Oh, it doesn't matter. We're CNN, and we'll keep having you back day after day after day, even though you lied to us during the entire Trump presidency. It doesn't matter. We lied too, because we just hate Trump, and that's why we exist. Good night now. All right, we've got a breaking video here. Marjorie Taylor Greene, in this committee hearing with Anthony Fauci, she finally got her shot, and you've got to see this because she basically told Anthony Fauci to his face, you should be in prison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fauci, you were quoted on CBS Face the Nation saying it's easy to criticize, but they're really criticizing science. Because I represent science. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci?
I am a scientist who uses the scientific method to gain information.
Yes, you said you represent science. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci? Yes or no? Yes or no?
No, that's not a yes or no
yes,
answer.
It's a yes or no.
I don't think it is.
Okay, well, we'll take that as a you don't know what you represent.
Oh,
But this, as director of the NIH, you did sign off on these so-called scientific experiments. And as a dog lover, I want to tell you this is disgusting and evil, what you signed off on, and these experiments that happened to beagles paid for by the American taxpayer. And I want you to know Americans don't pay their taxes for animals to be tortured like this. So the type of science that you are representing, Mr. Fauci, is abhorrent, and it needs to stop. Mr. Fauci, you also represent the type of science that where you confess that you made up the COVID rules, including
I didn't hear what you
6
said.
feet social distancing and masking of children.
I never said I made anything up.
You admitted that you made it up. You
I
made it
didn't
up
say
as you went.
I made it up.
So are you saying this is fake news, Mr. Fauci?
I didn't say I made anything up.
What did you say?
I said that it is not based in science and it just appeared.
But this is science.
What does dogs have to do with anything that we're talking about today?
These are scientific experiments. This is what you signed off on. But you also told the American people they had to distance by 6 feet. They had to wear masks. But let's also talk a little bit further about the type of science that you represent. NIH scientists made $710 million in royalties from drug makers, a fact that's been hidden. Let's talk about the fact about, is it right for scientists and doctors getting paid by the American people, government taxpayer paychecks to get patents where they're paid millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in royalty fees, especially when the NIH and these government agencies, most powerful agencies in our country, are recommending medical suggestions and advice and making up guidelines like 6 feet distancing and masking of children. Do you think that's appropriate? Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor. You're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes. No, I don't need your answer. I want to talk about this right here.
Mr. Chairman,
Fauci,
objection.
Objection. I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time, Mr. Raskin.
Gentlelady will suspend.
Mr. Chairman,
Point of order.
Just in terms of the rules of decorum, are we allowed to deny that a doctor is a doctor just because we don't want him to be a doctor?
Yes, because in my time, that man does not deserve to have a license. As a matter of fact, it should be revoked, and he belongs in
Gentlelady will
prison.
suspend. The gentlelady should recognize the doctor as a doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this what we have become? Is this what we have devolved into? No decorum.
You know what? We can do that hearing about the poor men that were injected with syphilis, because I support you in that. That's horrific. And this government that does things like that to Americans doesn't have decorum to the American people.
Mr. Chairman,
the gentleman is out of
point of regular order, please.
The gentleman is out of order.
Decorum.
Recognize the point of order. Go ahead with your point of order.
You got it.
No, I mean, I was going to say what Representative Raskin said. That's completely unacceptable to be able to deny Dr. Fauci, who's here, a respected member of the medical community, his title. And that's actually a personal attack on his character.
And I have instructed her.
He's not respected.
And I've instructed.
Can I just jump in here for a minute? There's more with MTG here, and we'll watch it. But I don't you love that the Democrats, of all of the things that you just saw, of Anthony Fauci using your tax dollars to kill little beagle puppies, Anthony Fauci lying about I love his clarification. I didn't say I just made up the 6 foot distancing. I said it just appeared somewhere and there was no scientific basis for it. Oh, okay. Thanks, pal. Thanks for that clarification. So you've got all of that. And the one thing they object, how dare you not refer to him as doctor? That's all you get exercised over? That's all you got, dude? This is outrageous. You've got to call him doctor. Okay, yeah, he's a doctor like Joe Biden's a doctor. They're not a serious political party, honestly.
Instructed her to address him as a doctor.
I'm not addressing him as doctor. Let's talk about this. I'm reclaiming my time. I'm reclaiming my time.
Words get taken down.
I'm reclaiming my time.
Second that.
Point of order.
Suspend. All right. A member can only move to have words. I'm sorry. The issues we are debating are important ones that members feel deeply about. And while vigorous disagreement is part of the legislative process, as I said at the beginning, members are reminded that we must adhere to established standards of decorum in debate. This is a reminder that it is a violation of House rules and the rules of this committee to engage in personalities regarding other members or to question the motives of a colleague. Remarks of that type are not permitted by the rules and are not in keeping with the best traditions of our committee. The chair will enforce these rules of decorum at all times and urges all members to be mindful of their remarks. Does the gentleman from California have anything further?
We should have to take her words down.
Yeah, I made it. I offered that her words be taken down, Mr. Chairman.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a point of order.
Mr. Griffin
they
is
accused us
Mr.
of
Griffin is
worshiping President Trump. We don't worship President Trump.
Gentlelady will suspend. Mr. Griffin, you have a point of order.
Mr. Chairman, while it may not be polite, I believe the rule only applies to members of this body, the Senate, and the President of the United States. I do not believe that it applies. The rule on taking down words does not apply to a witness. Again, I'm not condoning the words. I'm just relating or asking whether or not it applies to individuals who are just happen to be here in front of us.
I agree. The chair overrules the point of order by the gentleman from Maryland, but ask that members please afford all other members the respect they're entitled, refrain from using rhetoric that could be construed as an attack on the motives or character of another member.
All right. So in other words, you can go ahead and say whatever insulting thing you want to a witness. You just can't say it about another member, a member of the Senate, or the president, which I think is hilarious. So the Democrats are all exercised because they're not giving due deference and kowtowing and doing a Debbie Dingbat on Anthony Fauci. You must call him doctor. And it turns out the rules don't actually cover that. She can call him whatever she wants, as well she should. The Democrats are not serious.
Or the witness. You may proceed.
Thank you. This was a time in history where you got to throw out the first pitch at the Washington Nationals baseball game while Americans were forced to stay home and watch such events that they love from at home alone on their televisions. And what a hypocrisy this picture shows. Here you are without your mask, with empty seats everywhere. Remember the cardboard cutout fans? That was one of the most insulting things to Americans, having to watch the games from home where you got to go and enjoy the game and sit right next to people, not following the 6 feet of distancing, not wearing your mask, and everyone else was forced to stay home and stop enjoying life. And your science here, your science is displayed perfectly in this picture where children in school were put in plastic bubbles because of your science, your repulsive, evil science. And let's go back to your very own email. You said earlier you don't use email. Oh, you do. Right here. This is your own email where you said the typical mask you buy in the drugstore is not really effective in keeping out virus. I do not recommend that you wear a mask. This is your email. This is your own words. But yet children all over America were forced to wear masks. Healthy children forced to wear masks, muzzled in their schools. And then they were forced to learn from home because of your so-called science and your medical suggestions, while you and all your cronies get paid from Big Pharma. You know that what this committee should be doing? We should be recommending you to be prosecuted. We should be writing a criminal referral because you should be prosecuted for crimes against humanity. You belong in prison, Dr. Fauci.
Mr. Chairman, I have another point of order.
I recognize Ms. Dingell.
Just want to make sure the record is clear. Dr. Fauci testified that he did not use his personal email for official business. He did not say he did not use email. And I think today, this particular has been full of lies and disregard and disrespect, and we need to stick to facts.
Well, there you have it. Good job, Marjorie Taylor Greene. The fact that Debbie Dingell at the very end of that, the only thing she could point out is, hey, he said he didn't use personal email, not his work email. What about the children who were sitting there in preschool with the freaking diapers on their faces while that guy got to yuck it up at a baseball game? And we're told, oh, let's just move on. That's in the past. We didn't know. Hell no. You're damn right he belongs in prison. And she's damn right to represent the people in her district in Georgia that way. It takes cojones to stand up like that and do what she just did. And sadly, a whole chunk of people in the House of Representatives don't have those cojones. Thank you, MTG. Well done. That's it for this time. We'll be back next time. And in the meantime, I'm Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.